Hello there, people of the internet. I am surrounded with all sorts of stuff, and while I was looking through some of this stuff, I was thinking to myself, you know what I haven't done in a while? I haven't made a top 5 video of the best survival guns that you can get your hands on. Doing some minor camera adjustments here because I don't want my camera to fall. If I leave you there, are you gonna stay? If only you guys could see how sketchy this setup was. Anyway, the top 5, you know what, I guess it's technically going to be 6, just because of one of the things we're going to discuss here, but we're going to go ahead and just call it top 5. Top 5 best survival guns that you can possibly get your hands on in the United States for whenever things get bad. Now, that being said, there's a couple of different definitions for survival. Most of the time, whenever people think of, I'm going to be in a survival situation that requires me to have a gun, I'm going to be fighting marauders, and it's going to be a Mad Max, end-of-the-world, apocalyptic style of nonsense. Well, I don't think that there's ever been a point in time in the United States history where things have gone complete, full-on Mad Max. Even during the time of the Wild West, there was still a sense of law and order. Wasn't all that effective, but there was still a sense of law and order. So I don't think that things are ever going to get that bad. Whenever people think about a survival situation, they automatically jump to the worst possible scenario, and you definitely should be prepared for that worst possible scenario. But I have been in several survival situations. I live in Florida. For many years I lived like in very rural Florida, like away from everything, in the middle of the woods level of Florida, where power goes out for like a month plus at a time during a bad weather event, where the supplies that you have are simply what you have, and the stores in the tiny little town that is nearby are down. Like, there's no power, there's no way to really get there, trees are just all over the place because there's a ton of trees there. Bottom line, I've been in a couple of survival situations exactly like that, where if you want dinner, you have to either already have it like stored away inside of your house, which we did, we have plenty of it, but rather than go through our stores, we elected to go out and actually gather our food. We grow a lot of the food that we eat, or at least we did whenever I lived there, and we do gather a lot of the food that runs around in our property. We got a pretty big slice of land, or at least we did back whenever I stayed there. So the idea of survivalism is very, 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 very more often than not going to be based around actual survivalism versus getting into a gunfight. A lot of people like to focus on the gunfight aspect, but 9 times out of 10, actually 99.99999% of the time, you're not going to have a gunfight. Even with these past hurricanes that have been really, really bad, most of the people in most of the communities come together to help each other out. It hasn't gotten to the point ever where people have like gone full-on Mad Maxing attempts to try and gather what little resources they possibly can. Now, that being said, if it does come to full-on Mad Max, here's your first rifle that would be ideal for a survival situation. Obviously, here in the United States, we're going to pick some kind of AR, preferably one in 5.56, but if you have a particular caliber, dude, go for it, you do you. If you feel something is superior, by all means, have at it, but 5.56 is going to be your most popular cartridge that you'll be able to find here in the US. This particular one, I got a red dots magnifier setup. It's a 3-time magnifier. I can make shots with this thing pretty gosh darn easily. The ammunition is powerful enough to be able to take most of the game that I have around here in Florida, unless I come across like a particularly large bore. Even then, if I use heavier bullets, most people are going to use 55 or 62 grain bullets, but if I use heavier bullets, I shouldn't have much problem. Now, if you do feel more comfortable with a larger round, 300 blackout is an option, but it's going to be a lot less popular than a 7.62 by 39. If you want to go with a 30 caliber round, I'd probably recommend getting yourself an AK. You can mount optics to this thing as scopes. We got a rail mount on the side. Make sure that your particular one runs well and it is accurate. The 7.62 by 39 is just a more powerful, more potent round. It's a heavier bullet, than your 5.56. So it just does more destruction to targets. So that's going to be our number one. You can use this for protecting yourself, you can use it for game gathering, you can use it for whatever survival situation it is that you want. Just bear in mind that if you're going to go out and spend a year getting squirrels with your 5.56 rifle, you are spending your defensive ammunition on game gathering, which is one of the reasons why I don't recommend using your defensive rifle for game gathering. Get yourself your defense gun, get yourself your game gathering gun. Now, that being said, most of the time you're not going to need that. Most of the time, you do not need to defend yourself against the oncoming horde of marauders that are coming to steal your resources. And this is where the video really kind of begins, because I think we can all agree that getting one of those as like a general purpose, do everything rifle is probably a good idea. And if you want one to do everything, those would be good ideas. So this is a really good contender, which nobody's going to be surprised is on this list. 22 long rifle of some kind, just because the ammunition is powerful enough to handle most of the things that most people would need to handle, especially if we start talking about proper shot placement. I wouldn't exactly use this against the charging grizzly bear, if you get what I'm saying. But squirrels, raccoons, possum, if you manage to get up close to a deer and stick around right behind its ear, then it'll put it down. Just, you can do a lot with these. And like I said, ammunition, very inexpensive. Ammunition is small. You can carry a whole lot of it around. If you get some 22 long rifle that's self-loading, semi-automatic, something like that, that has external magazines, you can reload these things pretty gosh darn quickly. I wouldn't want to use this for defense, but I would use it for defense if I had to. They're not overly reliable. 22 long rifle, it's rimfire, it's a rimmed cartridge, it's very dirty. Not ideal for anything beyond a survival situation, but a survival situation, like I said, more often than not, you're not going to be fighting anybody. You're going to be out getting yourself squirrels for your next stew. Now, this is one I feel like is going to be a little controversial, but I'm still going to add it to this list. I would recommend a 9mm carbine of some kind. As a matter of fact, in terms of a survival gun, this would probably be your best option. Hear me out on this one. 9mm is small. You can carry around a 50-round box of 9mm without much issue. It's fairly lightweight, but out at long distances, 9mm, although not all that effective beyond, say, 200 yards, at 200 yards, it still has the same amount of energy as 22 long rifle does at the muzzle. So if 22 long rifle is powerful enough for you and your inclinations to do whatever it is that you're doing, 9mm is that powerful at 200 yards. It's not a long-range cartridge. It's not an overly effective cartridge. But most people can't really shoot well beyond 50 yards. Like, go down to your local gun range, especially if we have like an outside gun range or something like that, and look beyond the 50-yard mark. Like, I've noticed at my local gun range, beyond 50 yards, like, nothing is really shot at or tore up or anything because people can't shoot that far. Just watch people that go out there. They'll stick something out at 15 yards and struggle to shoot that damn thing. Very rarely do you get people who can touch out beyond that. And these are distances that are well within the range of 9mm. The price of 9mm is where I'm really starting to lean towards this right here being the most viable option. 9mm, as of right now, you can pick it up for probably about 15, maybe 20 cents a round, depending on what it is that you're getting, whether or not we're talking about shipping, whether or not you're buying in bulk, just a bunch of things like that. Versus something like 5.56, after shipping and taxes and all the extra things and hoops that you have to jump through, maybe even you have to pay a background check, I don't know, like that. You'd have to do that for 9mm too. But 5.56 is like twice as expensive as this, oftentimes 3 times as expensive. It'll run like somewhere around 60 cents a round. For bottom of the barrel, cheap 5.56, like surplus stuff. If you start looking more into high-end 5.56, you start getting more expensive. But Full Metal Jacket, 9mm, you can get a lot more 9mm than you can for 5.56. It's effective enough out at most distances that most of your people would be shooting at. If you need something that has more power, then by all means look into something else, but 95% of the people would be able to get away with something like this. Okay, Another really, really good survival firearm option. So we got the AR and the AK. That's the one that I kind of said was 2. That's 1 22 long rifle. That's 2 9mm. That's 3. This is going to be number 4. Flintlock rifle of some kind. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a flintlock. You can get away with percussion cap if you make your own caps. Or even if you don't, you can like take the nipple off, fill the reservoir with gunpowder, and use a lighter to actually set off that charge. I've done that before. And for the people who say that's impossible, that's how they used to do it back in the day. Instead of a lighter, they had like a burning, they called it match, but it's not that sort of strike match that you would think today. It was almost like a burning piece of twine. Literally just hold the gun in your hand, line it up. Oh, there's my lighter. Boom. Yay, it's really not that hard. If you're worried about burning your hand, it really doesn't burn your hand. I've done that before. But if you're worried about burning your hand, wear a glove whenever you do it. I don't care how you do it. But something like this right here, you can make your own gunpowder. Gunpowder is very easy to make, especially if we're just talking about screened powder. It is very easy to make. If you have bodily organs, you can make it. No, you do not need sulfur to make gunpowder. Whenever I tell people that, they absolutely freak out because they're like, no, you need sulfur for gunpowder. It will not work otherwise. It certainly will. Look it up. You don't need sulfur for gunpowder. You just need charcoal and nitrate, potassium nitrate, sodium nitrate, wherever it is you feel like getting your nitrates. It's a type of salt. There's plenty of places that you can go out and get it. You can go out and cast yourself whatever bullet size it is that you need. I would recommend getting yourself a .45 caliber because that's less lead that you get, like that you have to use per shot, sending down range. Or, although this might mess up your rifling depending on what it is that you stick inside there, you can use basically whatever it is that you can throw down the barrel. If you have yourself a smoothbore barrel, you don't have to worry about messing up your rifling inside of your rifle. But if you do have rifling inside of your muzzle loader, then you might have not only accuracy issues with shoving in whatever it is that you can find inside the barrel, but that might mess up your rifling over time of doing that. I've done it a couple of times and I really haven't messed up anything, but over time you might have some issues. But the beauty about this right here is this is one of those guns that you can keep up and going indefinitely. You can make the gunpowder, you can make the bullets, you can shove whatever it is that you have down the barrel, and then after that, you can fire this thing. If you can find flint, fantastic, go for it. If you can't find flint, the amount of people who tell me, oh, you can just go outside and dig up some flint and, you know, use it like that. And have you actually tried going out to find, like, natural flint in the ground? It's a lot harder than people seem to think. And even if you do find flint, you gotta fashion it in such a way to where whenever you pull the trigger, it makes a spark. And a lot of people just don't really pay that much attention to that. Like, at that point, it's easier to punch out a percussion cap from a freaking beer bottle or a beer can. I almost said beer bottle. This is just one of those guns that you can keep up and going indefinitely, and that is one of the reasons why I say that this is one of the best survival rifles that you can get, because whenever you run out of ammo for all of your other things, like you're gonna run out of 5.56 and something long term, you're gonna run out of 9mm, even 22 long rifle, you're just going to eventually run out. And even if you don't run out, 10 years down the road, if something happens that is that bad, guess what? That ammunition probably is not going to be all that good or all that reliable, especially if something is so bad that you cannot store it properly. This right here, you can run this forever. Alright, last but not least, I'm sure everybody was expecting this one too, a shotgun of some kind. I don't care if it's 12 gauge, 20 gauge, 4 gauge, whatever it is you want. Shotguns, if you have like a normal shell firing shotgun, you can load that shell basically with whatever it is that you want, but you still need the shell to be able to load your shotgun. You need fire, birdshot, buckshot, slugs. There's just a variety of different things that you can run through that thing. But what I have right here, this is a percussion cap shotgun. It's a muzzle loader, exactly what we just saw with the flintlock. Now, if you want a flintlock shotgun, percussion cap shotgun, whatever kind of shotgun it is that you want, even if you just want a shelled shotgun, so where you load shells into the thing, go for it. Just remember that you need those shells in order to set this thing off, and you need primers for those shells in order to set that thing off. This right here, you don't. Percussion caps, got them, great. If not, take off the nipples, use the lighter like I showed you guys before. Fill up that little chamber with gunpowder. It passes through into the actual charge of gunpowder. It goes bang, And there you go. So the beauty about these right here, if we have your muzzle loader shotguns, these have the same benefits as your muzzle loading flintlocks or your muzzle loading rifles. The only difference is these are smoothbore. So with these right here, you would be able to indefinitely load whatever it is that you have around. If you're going to be loading something hard, like steel BBs or something like that, make sure that you're using a modern production, modern steel muzzle loading shotgun, because something like steel shot might mess up your barrel. You just want to make sure that your barrel is actually rated for steel shot. This is one of those guns that you can also keep up and going indefinitely without much worry. This is one of those that you don't really have to worry about finding ammunition for, just like with the flintlock rifle. The only difference is this one right here, unlike something that has a rifled barrel inside of it, this one being smoothbore, you can literally load whatever you want inside of it, especially if the steel barrel is rated for it. Okay, well, there we go. I'm going to go ahead and add one more, just because I think it would be a really good idea. This one is not necessarily necessary. If you have any of the other options, then this would be, like, those other options would be able to handle most of the things that most people would need to handle. Most people wouldn't need this, but a full-powered bolt-action rifle for survival, like a 308 or a 30-06 or something along those lines, that would serve you extraordinarily well. Like, there's literally nothing that you could not do with that rifle. However, that being said, most people don't need the power of a 30-06 or a 308 or something like that. Most people flinch horrendously whenever they develop that flinch from firing those full-powered rifles. They become inaccurate. Most people can't hit jack of anything beyond 100 yards. We've already covered this. Like, for what most people can do, this is well in excess to what people would need. Most people aren't going elk hunting or bison hunting. They might go after a deer, but a 5.56, a proper 5.56 bullet, would be able to handle a whitetail no problem. Now, if you have, say, a charging bear coming at you, even something like this would not be ideal. This is a 3x9 scoped, like, bolt-action rifle. I would take the double-barreled shotgun with a couple of slugs over something like this against a charging bear. Good option. Definitely would be able to handle a vast variety of things, but way more powerful than what most people would need in a survival situation, to the point to where most people wouldn't really be able to effectively use it in a survival situation. You give someone an AR and teach them how to shoot, they don't really develop that much of a flinch. You give someone a 30-06 bolt-action rifle and just have them fire 10 times and then have them fire on an empty chamber and watch them go like this. We all do it. I do it. It's just what happens whenever you're shooting a full-powered rifle. Anyway, folks, that is my list. I think that was a pretty gosh darn good list. So, thanks for watching. Appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below is a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you on the next episode. Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Gary.
Shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.